Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about the different types of testosterone replacement therapy, their applications, their potential drawbacks, and the overall positives and negatives of each one. But before we get into that, my disclaimer, I'm not a doctor nor a chemist. I do not encourage the use of any substances, legal or illegal, and this video is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only. Always contact your physician before ever doing any sort of substance. So this is relating to TRT, so this can be applicable to people with andropause or clinically hypogonadal conditions, or basically being under the reference range of testosterone confirmed via blood testing. Typically, they want you to do a few blood tests, but I digress. So the first one, which is one of the more common ones, is topical gels and creams. So they're a little different from one another. There's the cream, which is a lot, I guess, for a lack of a better word, easier on the skin. I don't believe it has any alcohols in it, but I could be wrong in that regard. I've used this one before. You can apply to a few different sites. Thin skin on your forearms, I think the top of your feet, or you can apply to your testes, and that allows for higher rates of absorption if you apply it to that area specifically. I think about 50% higher, or I think in the forearms and the feet, it's like 10 to 20%, and then it's 50% there. And then the gels, which again, these kind of are in the same category, kind of not, depends on if they're compounded. There's a bunch of factors. But those are typically only for like the shoulders and the abdomen, I believe. They do contain alcohols, which can be irritating to the skin, so some people don't tolerate them very well, and you're never, ever supposed to use those on your testes. So the next one is one that a lot of people don't know about. It's oral testosterone undecanoate. So there's an ester called undecanoate, which is also a injectable, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And oral testosterone undecanoate actually can survive in the body without going through the first pass in the liver, therefore damaging the liver, and overall it actually has some bioavailability. Usually you have to take it 2 to 3 times a day, to my understanding, and you have to take a pretty hefty dose. Price-wise, it's not the best. You have to make sure you eat it with, I believe, fatty foods for it to absorb better. Excuse me. And overall, it's not a very commonly used one. I think it only just became available in the United States. It used to not be. There are no other oral testosterones besides testosterone undecanoate. I think in other nations there's Andriol, I think is the name of it. I could be wrong, but I digress. There's other nations with oral combinations. Moving forward, we have the most common, I would imagine, which is the injectables. I believe the ones in the United States that are available for prescription are propionate, cypionate, enanthate, and undecanoate. I could have that wrong. Maybe propionate isn't. I know the other 3 are, and it's possible that there are other forms of injectable testosterone available that I'm unaware of. But propionate, short-acting ester, doesn't last long in the body, maybe a few days. Cypionate, I think, lasts a half-life about 5 days. Same with enanthate. I could be wrong. It could be more like 7 to 10. A lot of these depend on, one, your body's ability to eliminate this from it, eliminate the compound from it, and it also, so that's very person to person, but also it can just depend on the study that you read. A lot of them have wildly different metrics for what the actual internal half-life is. And then there's undecanoate, which is a really, really long-lasting, or it's also called undecanoate. I don't know if it's pronounced either way, but this is the one I'm on. It lasts a really long time. That's one of the benefits. I do not like getting injections very much. Builds up a lot of scar tissue. It's kind of annoying. And also, undecanoate has to be injected in a large quantity, so you have to have a lot of milliliters at once. But it can last anywhere from 8 weeks to 14 weeks, depending on the amount and the brand and your levels and your body's ability to filter it out. Now, this one, that can vary wildly, so that's very important for persons when they go to a TRT clinic to get consistent blood work to monitor their testosterone levels on undecanoate. And undecanoate, again, I don't know which one to call it because I've heard it pronounced both ways. And I'm surprised it's not more popular than it is. They did only recently, a few years ago, I think, come out with that in the United States. It's been available in the UK for a long time. I believe the brand name for the UK is Nebido, and the United States is Avedo. I could have that wrong. I'm not entirely sure of the brand names of the product. I just know that it is testosterone undecanoate. Overall, longest acting one. Doctors oftentimes don't like to prescribe this one, especially for people who have not been on a injectable testosterone replacement therapy before, because you can have side effects and it's harder to mitigate. So the thing is, if you're on a propionate, a cypionate, or an anthate, then you can inject it. Oh no, I'm having this side effect. Okay, maybe we're giving you too much and we need to decrease it. Maybe we need to increase the frequency of injections and give you smaller amounts. There's a lot of things you can tweak with. With undecanoate, it's a lot of doing it and waiting and seeing what happens. So the testing period is a lot longer than like, oh, I can do this every few days and now I have a consistent routine. Undecanoate, it's nice because you don't have to get as many injections, but let's say that you find out your test level is too high and it gets spiked and your estrogen goes up. One way to combat that would be to take more frequent injections. But the thing is, with undecanoate, that's not typically how it's used, so it might be harder to actually get those frequent injections. Next is nasal sprays. So there is testosterone nasal sprays. I'm not super familiar with them. Part of the reason they're coming back on the market is because this can actually be patented, unlike a lot of the older forms of testosterone. And the nasal sprays have been theorized to increase sympathetic drive and overall make people a little bit more on edge. This is, again, all in theory, but overall, the idea is that because you're doing it intranasally, I can't speak today, intranasal, it has a really fast absorption rate and then spikes the body's levels so high that you get a sort of sympathetic drive in your brain and a higher amount of DHT as well. But that is, to my understanding, theoretical. I have not looked into the data for nasal sprays specifically. I typically stick to researching the creams and the oral and the injectables. And lastly, this one is one I researched a lot, but it is kind of hard to find for a testosterone replacement therapy clinic, and that is sublingual and mucosal. So sublingual means under the tongue, and mucosal means under the lip. And so you put it in the lip and have it on the lower gum area. So for sublingual, it's in I think a cyclodextrin complex. You put it under the tongue. It's micronized testosterone, so it can actually absorb through that small of amount. And you actually get testosterone absorbing through those little veins in your tongue, as you can see. And mucosal, it's kind of the same idea, except you just kind of plop it in your lip here. If you've ever chewed nicotine gum or had a nicotine mucosal, it'll stick right here, and then you just let it dissolve, and you get your testosterone that way. So benefits to this is that it's a very easy means of administration. Cons are you have to do it a lot. So some people prefer to do spikes of it, so they take a lot in the morning and some amount at night, and then they just do that in higher quantities. Some people prefer to just take small amounts throughout the day to keep their biological levels, to keep their testosterone levels at a steady state. But overall, it seems to be one of the more tedious ones, and it's partially why a lot of places don't have it. Also, it typically has to be compounded in a compounding pharmacy because it's not often just... I don't think there's really just like a brand name or like a consistent brand that just creates it. So I could be wrong on that. As with everything I say, I could be wrong on all of this. But when it comes to sublingual and mucosal, it has to be sent to a compounding pharmacy. It has to be created, and then it can be shipped to you. And overall, I believe the price is not worth it because you have to have so much. That also can apply to oral testosterone undecanoate, because you have to have so much of that oral testosterone because so much of it gets depleted through your body, or doesn't get absorbed through your body, sorry. It sometimes is not the best move in terms of financials. Overall, if I were to pick one, which I did, I picked injectable undecanoate. I only have to worry about it, I don't know, maybe 6 times a year, which between 6 times and 4 times a year, which is pretty incredible and pretty remarkable in my opinion, and I think that it has a lot of potential to help a lot of men, especially with andropause who really hate injections like me. However, again, first time using it, it can be quite unmanageable. Not as easy to tweak the protocols, and you can have some side effects. There's also the question of how does it affect its SHBG? Does it increase it? Does it crash it? And regardless, both of those things are not very good. You want your SHBG to be within range because that is a healthy, normal function of your SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. And overall, that is the ones that I wanted to talk about today. If you guys know of any other applications of testosterone, I can't really think of any, but I would love to hear them. And following up as to what I would choose if I was to go non-injectable, I mean, I just would exclude the nasal spray probably, unless I had more evidence on it. But I like the idea of the sublinguals. They're okay. It might be able to match the body's natural circadian rhythm by pulsing in the morning and decreasing as the day goes on. At least that's the theory of how it is. So that could be interesting. But if I were to pick one and I really wanted one and it was affordable, to be clear, because part of the problem is a lot of these aren't affordable, I would go with oral testosterone undecanoate probably. I would monitor my body's filtration rates and such, and I would monitor my kidney health and liver health, just out of an abundance of caution. But overall, I would probably go with oral testosterone undecanoate if I had to do one that was a non-injectable. The other problem is there's vastly different rates of absorption for every single one of these, to some level even the injectable, but injectable is typically like it's in there, it's getting absorbed, now it's just a matter of how fast does it get ramped out. The other ones, you have to worry about the actual absorption rates. Some people have thicker skin when it comes to the creams. Some people have to worry about close contact with family members for the creams as well. But I digress. Some people don't absorb things well through their nasal cavities. Some people have terribly thick mucosal linings, and some people just don't absorb things well sublingually. So a lot of that and the oral testosterone is obviously a big one because some people just don't absorb that well at all, especially if their digestive health is in the gutter. But overall, I mean, injectable, there's a reason why injectable is so consistently used. It's because you can consistently get the levels that you need, and it's easy to monitor and easy to do. I say easy relatively. Obviously, giving people injections all the time is not the most fun thing in the world, but it makes a lot of men have a lot better outcomes in terms of their hypogonadism and andropause. So that's going to wrap it up for the video today. If you guys enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you guys want to comment and tell me what I got wrong in the comments, I'm sure people are going to tell me what I got wrong in the comments anyways. Tell me about maybe what you've done for testosterone replacement therapy, because I shared with you that I'm on testosterone undecanoate, and I find it to be very useful. Any horror stories, that's always interesting to read about too, but obviously only share what you're comfortable with. And please, nothing violent, dangerous, illegal, or anything like that in my comment section. Overall, if you guys like my channel in general, please subscribe to it. Hit the notification bell if you'd be willing to. And as always, keep those shoulders back and down when you lift, and don't just have a good one, have a great one.